The Nile River has been the cradle of one of the greatest empires the world has ever known. And though its banks no longer hold the power they once did, what if ancient Egypt never lost their empire? What if instead of conquering Africa and Western Asia, Alexander the Great had come to conquer the Nile and been laid to rest among the pharaohs he so admired? What if ancient Kemet was the true first superpower and not Greece or Rome? Join me today as we take a look at the entire world if ancient Egypt had become the world's first global superpower. It's me. Welcome to my channel where we explore the strange and wonderful what-if scenarios of history and beyond. If you enjoy alternate history, strange theories, and amazing artwork, then make sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. Now let's dive into today's video. Ancient Egypt was a powerhouse of a civilization. While other empires around them rose and fell, the Egyptians seemed destined to rule the banks of the Nile forever. But by 1000 BC, the empire would collapse into a series of smaller kingdoms and eventually fall to foreign powers. That is, of course, until the rise of Alexander the Great brought new life into the Egyptian people. As he made his way through Egypt, he had hoped to be welcomed as a liberator from Persian rule, and the Egyptians did welcome him as such. He spent over 2 years in Egypt, visiting every major city and building several temples and sanctuaries himself. His relationship with the Egyptian people was so good that he married a Persian princess in an effort to unite the two peoples after the long conflict. He also founded the city of Alexandria, which would go on to become one of the largest cities in the Mediterranean. When Alexander died in Babylon at the age of just 32, the people of Egypt were devastated. They proclaimed him a god, lamenting the loss of a man who had come so close to uniting the whole world. Ptolemy the Firm, his general, was appointed to govern his empire after his death, but he chose to stay in Egypt and become the first pharaoh of the Ptolemaic kingdom, declaring himself the new Alexander the Great. This went on for a few generations until Cleopatra, the last active ruler of the line, died, leaving her infant child and the kingdom to Rome. Thus, Egypt became a province of Rome and the native rulers were no more. But what if Alexander had stayed? What if the pharaohs had lived on? Let's find out. Let's start in 1000 BC, right before the Egyptian empire began to fracture into smaller kingdoms. The Egyptian New Kingdom is often regarded as one of the greatest eras of Egyptian history and one of the longest lasting. It was during this time that Egypt reached its greatest territorial extent and had immense wealth and cultural influence throughout the region. It was also during this time that Akhenaten came to power. He is often noted as being one of the most radical pharaohs in Egyptian history. In fact, many historians argue that he was one of the first monotheistic people in human history. He built a new capital in Amarna and dedicated it to the sun god Aten. He even went as far as to try and convert the Egyptian people from polytheism to monotheism, though he failed in this endeavor. He was succeeded by Tutankhamun, who returned the religion to its old ways and moved the capital back to Thebes. But what if Akhenaten's reforms went further than just religion? What if he also expanded Egyptian culture and customs across the region? Already the Egyptians had begun to expand their culture across Africa and into the Levant. Their influence had reached Nubia in the south and into the Levant in the north. They even established colonies along the Mediterranean coast of North Africa and in Western Asia. But what if during the reign of Akhenaten, Egypt began to truly spread its wings? What if instead of being satisfied with their current territory, they began a campaign of total domination? By harnessing the power of the Egyptian navy, Akhenaten would begin to conquer the Mediterranean coast of North Africa. From there, he would turn his attention to the Hittites, Kush Empire, and the Kingdom of Israel, bringing all of the Levant under his control. He would finish his reign by conquering the Nubian kingdoms in the south and establishing trading posts across the continent. After his death, Tutankhamun would cement Egypt's holdings by crushing rebellions and establishing friendly relations with neighboring kingdoms. Now let's fast forward about 400 years to the time of Alexander the Great. With Egypt having already secured its dominance over Africa, the Levant, and much of the Middle East, Alexander's campaigns would be a lot easier. Instead of having to fight against the Persians, he would have allied with Egypt, and together they would have crushed the Assyrian Empire. With Alexander dead, the generals of his army would have still divided up the empire, but Egypt would have easily held on to its territories in the east. In fact, Egypt's influence would only grow from here. Over the next few centuries, Egypt would reach its territorial peak and establish itself as the first true superpower of the ancient world. By 300 BC, Egypt would have stretched from the Indus River all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. The Egyptian army would have grown to rival any standing army in the world, boasting over 1 million soldiers at full strength. They would have developed advanced siege tactics and war machines unmatched by their enemies. As Egypt grew in size and power, its culture would have spread to the rest of the world. Hieroglyphics would have replaced Greek as the common language of the Eastern Mediterranean and many parts of Asia. The pyramids of Giza would have been copied across the region, and Egyptian gods would have been worshipped alongside local deities. So now let's see what happens when Alexander the Great arrives in Egypt in 332 BC. But something is different. The Egyptian pharaoh is eager to meet this great conqueror and welcomes him into Egypt with open arms. Together they would crush the Persians and establish a new era of peace across the region. When Alexander dies, Egypt inherits his empire and becomes the superpower of the ancient world. As the centuries pass, Egypt's influence grows. Its borders stretch from the Indus River in the east to the Atlantic Ocean in the west. Its army becomes the largest in the world, and its culture spreads to every corner of the globe. If Egypt had never fallen, the modern world would be a very different place. The legacy of the pharaohs would live on for thousands of years, and the pyramids of Giza would stand as a testament to their power. You know, as I was writing this video, I couldn't help but wonder what the world would be like if the Egyptians had become the first superpower. Would their influence have been greater than the Greeks and Romans? Would hieroglyphics have replaced Latin as the lingua franca of the ancient world? And would the pyramids of Giza have been copied by other cultures? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're at it, be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps us grow and lets us bring these videos to more people. And as always, thanks for watching.